We started in December 1st, 2014 with this adventure lodging concept. And we didn't go out and get investment money. We stayed as a privately owned family business. And there are moments where I wonder if that was the right move or not.
My name is Sebastian Leitner. Welcome to the podcast, The Turndown. Recently sat down with Asa Firestone. He is a rock climber who lives in Boulder, Colorado. Boulder is a place where you fly to or travel to when you want to see parks, natural beauty, fantastic mountains. It's in the middle of Colorado, but it's sort of a stepping stone into the great, wild American Rocky Mountains. Right? Asa runs 2 properties, a beer garden, camper vans. He's a really great character with a business background that has discovered hospitality via detours and is creating a community catering to rock climbers and nomads, digital nomads, people who are finding beauty in nature. Asa, welcome to the podcast. It's a pleasure having you on board. Thank you so much for joining. And I want to get right into the most important question, which is, as a CEO and co-founder of A-Lodge, what is keeping you up at night these days?
Well, other than my 8-week-old baby, there's
Congratulations.
a lot. Yeah, thank you. There's a lot that keeps me up at night. We are a small business, under-resourced. We've been bootstrapping for a long time. We never got big investment money. So, it's really a family-owned business. There's things from maintenance, which is probably the biggest thing that keeps me up at night, to this kind of internal drive to try to grow and to try to, be better and always be striving to, become a more of the ideal vision of what I set out to accomplish. And so that's always, that drive is always keeping me up at night. Then, another aspect that keeps me up at night is that I started a camper van business because we're in adventure lodging. And so I thought, okay, what's more adventure lodging than camper vans, right? It's like a hotel on wheels that can go out on adventures into the backcountry. And that's a very different business than hotels. It's really more similar to rental car business. So that's kept me up at night because I've had to relearn a whole new business. And then in addition, at our second location, we've got a beer garden and food truck park that I started as part of the property. And that's another business that I've had to learn as well. So, there's the maintenance, there's the growth and the drive to always be improving. And then there's, learning new businesses on top of just the hotel business.
That sounds so interesting. So to our listeners, let's get to maybe a few minutes spent on describing your property. Let's start with that. You have 2 properties, if I'm not mistaken, and they're branded A-Lodge. Is that correct? And help our listeners understand what is so different or what is so unique about your properties?
Absolutely. So I'm going to actually go back to the beginning here. And I'm a rock climber. That's my passion. That's what I love to do in my spare time. Back when I was 25, I got a grant with National Geographic, a Young Explorers grant. We went to the Venezuelan Amazon, took a 2-week backcountry, ongo boat journey into like the deepest part of the Orinoco Basin. We actually went into like a military zone, and it's a whole other thing, but
that's a podcast on its own. Okay.
Yes. And we went out there to try to climb this mountain called Aretitiope. And we honestly, after a 2-week boat journey and then a couple days trekking through the jungle, we didn't even get to the base of it. So it was a total crazy adventure. we did do some climbing, but it wasn't, what I'd set out to. And then I've climbed El Capitan a number of times in Yosemite. So I'm a big climber. And so in 2014, I set out to create the Climbers Hostel for Boulder, Colorado. Boulder is a place that has amazing adventure, amazing rock climbing, and yet even back then in 2014, it was very expensive to try to stay in Boulder. There wasn't a proper campground. The hostel was shut down a year before, turned into student housing. So there was a need to create a space for adventure enthusiasts to be able to stay in Boulder and experience Boulder.
Mm-hmm.
So we found this property, and it was just a very tired, kind of old, beat up motel, but it had a perfect location and the perfect property. And so we bought that in December of 2014. It was called the Boulder Mountain Lodge. And then since then, we've been, we renovated the lobby. We've renovated all the rooms. We've rebranded it. We created the Adventure Lodge brand, or the A Lodge for short, which is really what we go by. And we converted a couple suites into a hostel. We redid the campground there because that property was the only permitted camping in all of Boulder. We built out some van life sites. We built a bar and got a liquor license. We've done a lot. We built a slackline park there. We connected a trail to the local, hiking above our property. So it's kind of like a never-ending labor of love just on that property, because there's just so much potential. And even now, 8 years in, there's still so much more to do. But when I go up there and I look around, it does really feel satisfying to think about where we started and then where we've gotten to. It's kind of crazy how long that type of project takes and how much blood, sweat, and tears go into it. But if you actually compare what we started with where we're at now, it really is night and day. So that's something that I really have to remind myself every day, because otherwise, you get so caught up in the weeds of, oh my gosh, we have this maintenance issue. We've got to replace these pipes. We have a couple months ago in the winter, we had a leak because we're on a cistern, on a well, a leak underground that we couldn't find for a month. And so we were having to truck water up to keep water going through our pipes and for our guests so people could take showers and all of that. And
it was likely freezing temperatures, just for everyone to understand.
Absolutely. So it was freezing temperatures. And what it was it was a old pipe that was 10 feet underground. We actually jackhammered up some of our foundation because our leak detector told us it was there. It wound up being about 5 feet out from there. And so then we were like, oh, well, we didn't actually have to jackhammer up this concrete. So then, it's just those type of issues are so fundamental to a property like this, which is in the mountains, where you have a well, you have a wastewater treatment plant, it's old infrastructure. But at the same time, with those difficulties, of maintenance and old infrastructure, it's also worth it because it's such a unique property. It's 5 minutes from downtown Boulder. When you're up there, you feel like you could be anywhere in the Rockies. You feel like Boulder is miles and miles and miles away. It's beautiful. It just feels like another world. But then you can get back into town and go to 5-star restaurants, and be on Pearl Street and experience all that Boulder has to offer. So you kind of have the best of both worlds, and it fit our brand and our vision of creating a adventure lodging hub in the center of adventure resources. So Boulder Canyon has amazing hiking. It's got amazing fly fishing. It's got amazing rock climbing. It's got amazing mountain biking. It's got all of it. And, all of those adventures are at the fingertips of our guests. But then we're also next to Boulder. So it's worth all the difficulties and all the headaches because of the unique aspects of the property. It's really been the hardest thing I've ever done, and also the most satisfying thing I've ever done. So
now I want to go back to Boulder. I went through Boulder probably 10 years ago when visiting Yellowstone. I think I flew into Boulder, picked up a car, and then from there on we went 3 weeks hiking through Yellowstone and surrounding parks, which was fantastic, but nothing hiking like you do hiking. It's probably more not rock climbing, maybe just hiking. Let's call it this way. You mentioned something that spurred my interest. You said bootstrapped at some point in our conversation, right? So here you are, 8 years ago, you start with no foreign investment. How do you keep going? How do you motivate yourself to because you must have seen a lot of things in these 8 years.
Yeah, absolutely. Man, I mean, I think that's the biggest question that I continue to ask myself is I look at some other brands that are, in the same market as us. So the lodge camps, the Gravity House, the auto camp. I mean, these are different, they're definitely different animals than a lodge, but all of those brands started out by, they bootstrapped maybe for a year or so to prove their model. Then they went out and they got serious investment money so that they could, grow quickly. And we've been kind of the opposite. We started out, we were actually before any of those brands. We started December 1st, 2014 with this adventure lodging concept. And we didn't go out and get investment money. We stayed as a privately owned family business. And there are moments where I wonder if that was the right move or not. And because it's really difficult to, real estate takes a lot of money, right? It takes a lot of resources, takes a great team. And when you are bootstrapping, it makes all of that a lot harder. The advantage is that you don't have a boss, which is awesome. And there is I think that I look at it kind of like climbing a big wall or a climbing expedition where you've got to enjoy some of that kind of what I call type 2 fun, where, you've got to enjoy the pain of climbing the mountain, and the journey of that and find that challenge to be really inspiring. Because otherwise it's not worth it, right? Because 8 years of your life, if you don't enjoy some of the challenge of that and, rather than just, the success, then it's not going to be possible. It's not going to be worth it, for me as the entrepreneur. And I think that one of the things that we've done that has made that more feasible is that because of our adventure brand, because of our rock climbing culture, we've actually been able to bring in a lot of staff members who are climbers, who feel like they're part of a climbing tribe. And so they, I've got a number of employees, amazing employees who've been with us for years and years. They live in a van on our property. And so they don't have to pay Boulder rent, and they can afford to live in Boulder and afford to have a job at a hotel. And then when they say, hey, I'm going to Yosemite for a week to go climbing, we say, yeah, we get it. We're climbers. Go to Yosemite. Just give us a heads up so we can cover your shifts. But we want you to live your best life as long as it's reasonable. And so they understand that we're climbers, that we understand they're climbers. And so it creates a culture that is supportive and it kind of, what do you say? We kind of walk the talk, and that means that our retention of our employees, of really amazing people, is incredible, right? It's made it easier to bootstrap because we have awesome people who live on site that believe in the culture, they believe in us, they believe in the property, and they believe in the mission of A Lodge.
What's also so interesting, oftentimes in hospitality, the staff servicing guests are not part of the same necessarily community, right? It's like you have a young aspiring professional that works in hospitality catering to a corporate traveler or a family of people traveling together. So the social and economic factor of or sort of attributes are very different. It sounds to me you have your own customer, I guess, almost portfolio catering to your own guests, right? Like it's sort of your staff is made out of your target audience, if you will.
Yeah. I mean, I think that absolutely. Now, the only thing I would say there is that being in Boulder and being part of the Boulder lodging market, we definitely get a lot of climbers. We get hikers. We get mountain bikers who stay with us. Get outdoor industry groups who stay with us. We've had North Face. We've had Patagonia, Arc'teryx. We have Uphill Athletes, which is owned by Steve House, who's one of the greatest alpinists, American alpinists to ever live, who's staying with us right now. They're doing a retreat. But that being said, we also get all sorts of different type of guests. So we get some corporate guests that have nothing to do with the outdoor industry. We get a ton of families. You know, Boulder, we get a lot of University of Colorado student parents, right? So, you know, people from New York and Texas and California who are older that really have nothing to do with our kind of adventure climber tribe. But I think that what works for us is that our branding, it's all aligned with the property and with this outdoor culture. And so even if you're not our target demographic being a rock climber, you're a parent who lives in LA, but you know what you're getting into. You know that this is an adventure branded place. It's adventurous. It's more laid back. It's more casual. And then when you meet people who are working there that are also climbers, they might have a beard, stuff like that. It fits, and and people appreciate the fact that we have a strong culture, we have a strong brand that speaks to who we are and what to expect. And then of course, if you are a climber and you're staying with us and you just fit right in, you can talk to our staff members about where to go climbing. I like to think about all of our front desk staff members being adventure concierge.
Nice.
So, you can talk to anybody who works there and they will be able to give you great data or information about where to go climbing, where to go hiking, where to get gear, all of that.
And all the stuff that is not on social media or the internet easily accessible. So the secret spots, I assume, as well, right?
Yeah, some of them. We don't want to give all our secrets away.
Okay. All right. I get that. I want to get back to something you said earlier. So you started in 2014 with a property in Boulder, and then you've expanded or added complexity to your business, right? You've added an additional property in Alliance, if I'm not mistaken. There's a beer garden, there's camper vents, there's a bar. Help me understand, is there anything you would have not done? Let's put it this way. Let's start there.
I think that's
in hindsight.
Yes, that's a great question. So we started both of those businesses, the camper van rental business and the Lions property in 2019. So right before the pandemic. And if I had hindsight with the pandemic and with everything else, I don't know if I would have done either of those businesses. That's not to say that neither of them have been successful, but they've been really taxing on me personally. And I think that as I learn more about business and as I get more experience, I realize that it's not all about just growing as fast as you can. It's about, because my time and resources are, finite, right? So I can only do so much. And if I spend all my time working on something that's not the right option, then I'm not working on the other option that could have been a lot more useful and could have gotten us further down the road. Now, so really where that's gotten us is that the camper van business is super cool. We got into it at the right time. That being said, we were not resourced enough to do it as well as I wanted to. I really believed in it. I feel, and I still believe that it fits our brand so well, but I just didn't have enough hours in the day. And honestly, at this point, we've taken a big step back on our camper van rentals. We've sold a number of our vans. We had 8 vans at our peak. We sold, yeah. And each of those vans is really expensive. So that was a big investment for us. So we sold most of our vans. We're planning to keep one van, and we are going to take the next year, and we're not going to do rentals to the public. We're going to use it for marketing events. We're going to do some giveaways. We're going to bring it to different adventure outdoor industry events to market for A Lodge. And, we might be able to rent it to some, friends and family who we know and trust. We just have had a lot of issues with maintenance, with, problems with the van, or problems with user error at 2 a.m. and then they're calling me and I'm dealing with it. And we weren't able to make the numbers on the camper vans work as well as I had hoped. Now, there's some amazing companies out there, Native Camper Vans, Titus, Escape. There's a lot of companies out there that are making renting out camper vans work. But what I've realized is that with our resources being finite, I need to focus on what's our core value proposition? What is it that we do well that makes our business work? And that is really adventure lodging. And camper vans are that, but it's a bit of an offshoot. And so we need to focus, being small and then with Lyons, Lyons is an awesome town. I actually live in Lyons. It's in between Boulder, Colorado and Estes Park, where Rocky Mountain National Park is. It's got amazing music and great restaurants, and it's got a beautiful river that comes through it. It's got Planet Bluegrass, which has some of the best bluegrass festivals in the world, located right here in Lyons. So it's a really cool town, but it's very small and it's very seasonal. And so that project has been a little difficult as well. And then to add in some complication, I built out this beautiful event space, food truck park, beer garden. And so I've had to learn that business from scratch. And that's been hard. It took a long time to get it built. We had some issues with permitting. It costs more with material costs and labor costs during the pandemic. But what I realized is that the camper vans, a little easier to sell and to liquidate, right? They're a little more liquid for capital versus Lyons, which I didn't want to sell. And Lyons is a lot harder to sell, right? Because it's real estate and it hasn't had time to really be proven fully yet. So I don't want to sell Lyons. Camper van's a little easier to sell, a little bit more brand drift. So that's kind of what I've done is I've pulled back on the camper vans, focus on our Boulder property and our Lyons property. And I think that's the right decision, is just really focus on what is our core value proposition, what is our core business, that is adventure lodging and owning our real estate. And I think that that's the right decision, as being a small business to focus.
Yeah. Sounds great. And you're absolutely right. What lets you sleep easily? The sort of the reverse question of what keeps you up at night? What gives you comfort? What relaxes you?
That's a really good question. I think having amazing staff
Mm-hmm.
Having, working with a good accountant so that I uh, have a model for my finances going out a year or two, so I can
Mm-hmm.
really feel like, okay, this is where our cash flow is. Because being an entrepreneur, being a small business, the worry is that you run out of cash, you can't make
Sure.
payroll, and then where are you at? Then you're
Mm-hmm.
in a bad place. That's dark. So, really being confident in our model and our forecasts. So that way, because being a small seasonal business, there have been times where I've looked at our numbers and I've said, oh, we are going to run out of money at this point in the middle of January when we're slow. But
Okay.
if you know that, and that you're going to have a great summer, well, you can work with that. You can figure that out. You can work with the bank to get a line of credit, whatever it might be. If you have time and you know what's coming, you can solve it. And so I
Can
think,
tackle that. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, exactly. So that's what helps me sleep at night, is knowing I've got an amazing team that I can rely on, that we can delegate tasks to, and feel confident in them to perform that like I would. And then being confident in our numbers so that I don't have financial surprises.
Yeah. That's so important. I want to do a quick lightning round. So in the lightning round, I will throw you a word and just share what comes to mind. Could be anything. Could be a word as well, or could be a sentence. But I'm curious, on your reactions, of course. There's no wrong answer, and I've witnessed quite a few very funny reactions. So that should certainly be entertaining. What comes to mind when I say the word departures?
Um, Housekeeping.
Okay, luggage.
Oof. I don't know. Luggage.
Maybe
Uh,
you don't have one. You only use a
yeah,
backpack, I assume.
yeah. Backpack. Yes. Yeah, we'll go with backpack on that one.
Direct versus OTA.
Oh, profit margin.
Okay. Distraction.
My life.
Digital marketing.
Uh, Headaches.
Okay. Travel in 2030.
Ooh. Uh, Opportunity.
Okay. Social media.
I would give this two: opportunity and uh time suck.
Leisure.
Oh, digital nomads.
Okay. Housekeeping.
Uh, I mean, this is a longer one. Housekeeping was the hardest part of the beginning of our business, and once we really solved it, it's become so good and amazing. So maybe a problem to solve, a crucial problem to solve, but we've solved.
Now, I need to ask a follow-up question that goes a little bit outside of the lightning round. Why was it a problem? What was the problem?
Uh, our location in Boulder is a little bit, it's up the canyon. You need a car to get there. And so we had a really hard time finding reliable staff for housekeeping.
Okay.
And eventually we found the right staff members, and we, compensated them well. And they've been with us for a very long time. And it's really worked out really well. But there was a long period where housekeeper would call out and, it's snowing or something like that. And then you don't have somebody there. What are you going to do? I have to go and clean rooms. And, I've got a billion other things I was planning to do, but there's no other choice. I've got to go and clean rooms because we have guests coming, and we are certainly not going to not have a clean room for them or walk them to somewhere else. We're going to clean the room. And if it means I have to do it, I'm going to do it. So, and it could, housekeeping could, fall through at some point, and then we have to start over and find the right people. And it's hard because it's a hard job. It pays okay, but doesn't pay amazing. So, finding the right housekeeping staff is so crucial, training them right. It's just so fundamental to the operation of our business. And since we're small and we're a little bit more remote, it's different from something like the Marriott in downtown Denver, downtown Boulder, which is a little more standard. But when you find the right team, makes everything so much better. And then you can really start building and, getting more creative and spending your time where you want it to go.
Yeah, fantastic. I want to talk a little bit about the pandemic, but less so about the impact. I think everyone has had their own experiences, more so, what you personally learned from it. What were some of the sort of realizations or best practices or learnings that you've taken from the pandemic and that you still, to a certain extent, apply maybe today?
I think that what I've learned from the pandemic is humility. I started this business when I was 32 years old, and I had success in the beginning. I mean, it was hard, but I felt like, oh, I can do this, and we're just gonna, in 10 years we're gonna be this big thing, and it's not that hard, and we're gonna, I just felt like success was guaranteed for, and it was. It was something that was promised in a way, and that's ridiculous. And that's partly because I was young, but it also is partly because I hadn't gone through some of those hard times to learn how grateful I need to be, how appreciative I need to be for the success that we've had, and how hard it really is to keep that success and maintain it. And, and the pandemic really made that obvious, right? It all of a sudden you don't have the bookings, you don't have the revenue, you've got to deal with, PPP funds, you've got to deal with staff that don't necessarily want to work. You've got to deal with, and at that point I had just expanded. I was expanding to Bands into our second property in Lyons. And I mean, yeah, it was really difficult for me to figure out how do I make it through all of this, being a small business without a ton of resources, without deep pockets. And it really taught me humility and taught me that, also it taught me the value of investments, right? When you spend money on things, you better know that they're the right things, because that money doesn't come back. And if you spend money on the wrong things because you were moving too quickly, or you didn't analyze it well enough, that could be a mistake that could have dire consequences in the future. And I think that in the beginning, I was thinking, well, we gotta make these improvements. We gotta just make quick decisions and move fast. And now I've realized that that's okay. You can move fast, and in a lot of ways, in the right situations, that's the most important thing. But in the end, you've got to make the right decisions. And if it takes a year longer to make that right decision, hold your money, hold what small amount of money you have, and invest it properly. That is so much smarter in the long run than just trying to get things done and just trying to move as fast as you can. So I think humility and the value of the small amount of resources that you have, making sure you spend those and you invest those resources wisely, even if it takes longer.
Very, very nice. I think you coined a term that I've been copying a few times, but I believe you joined a Cloud Beds or Cloud Talks event at some point. You were talking about the Great American Road Trip is back. Following the pandemic, or as we were coming out of the pandemic, people started to travel again and go outdoors. I'm curious, as we're approaching, if you will, the summer of 23. Are we looking at a normal summer from your point of view? Like, are we back to some form of normality, or are things still crazy to a certain extent?
I mean, that's a good question. I don't have a crystal ball, but I do think that things are coming back to more normal than they have been the last couple of years. Um, what I'm seeing in the Boulder market is that we're still going to, I believe we're going to have our best summer ever, personally. I think our summer last year was actually, for us, was great. And I think that this summer is still going to be great. I think that our revenues will be slightly higher than they were last summer. Um,
Mhm.
and what I think that is going on is ADR is going up, right, with inflation and with
Sure.
whatever else, but ADR is going up. I think occupancy has been going up, but it's not quite to where the levels were, at least in the Boulder market in 2019. But they're really close. But
Mhm.
ADR is so much higher that RevPAR and overall gross revenues are going to be higher than they were even in 2019. In terms of the road trip, you know, I think that, um, the last couple of years, it's been great. I mean, people have been traveling by car, right? They're not going international. They're traveling from the Midwest and driving out to Colorado, and then they want to stay with us. And so for us, I think it's been good. Uh, we've benefited from that trend. I think that is slowing down. I think people are tightening up their pocketbooks a little bit. Um, but when they do that, what are they still want to get out. They still want to enjoy themselves. They still want to get out to the mountains and travel. And I think that the cheapest way to do that is still the road trip. And so I think that there is still going to be a heavy interest in the American road trip. But with vans, right, we being in the van business, we have seen decrease in interest in buying vans and renting vans. I think is still, there's still a lot of interest, but now there's a lot more supply out there. There's more people doing that. There's outdoorsy where people, if you own a van and you realize just sitting in your driveway all day and you take it out 4 times a year, well, why not rent it? And so outdoorsy is the Airbnb of vans and RVs. So that's been growing. But yes, I think that, people are less likely to buy a van today than they were last year. And,
Mhm.
um, and I think that they're less likely to, take a bunch of time and go on an expensive road trip. I think it's a little more subdued road trips this year.
Yeah. Before we wrap up, I want to talk a little bit about the future or next generation, right? You started in the business at the age of 32, if I believe you mentioned. And I'm curious if there's one piece of advice you'd give someone starting out in this industry now, what would that be?
Oof. Well, one is to have a well-defined plan. If you are going to bootstrap, know what that is and have a vision for where that will take you. Versus if you are going to get big investment and that's your plan, well, know what that path looks like and have that kind of defined. Understand, okay, this is why we're doing this, and this is our goal, and we're going to go out and get investment at this point, and then our exit strategy is this. For me, I'm more of a doer, right? So I have an idea. I'm just going to jump into it and figure it out as I'm going,
Mhm.
which I think has some advantages, but it can create a lot of problems, and it can get you into a bind, right? Because you find yourself in a place that you hadn't mapped out.
Mhm.
The other thing that I would advise is the youth today have a huge advantage with marketing. They understand, I'm not on TikTok, right? And I don't even know how valuable TikTok really is for a business like ours. But, the youth today understand where the future of marketing, especially, entrepreneurial kind of bootstrap marketing, is going, and how to use that. The last thing I want to do is pick up my phone, talk to the camera every day, right? I just don't want to do that. I feel weird about it. I don't really love that. But if I grew up doing that, and if I understood and I felt comfortable doing that, maybe that's an amazing way to create thousands of followers and get free publicity and free marketing without having to spend a dime. So I think that embracing the new marketing culture and the new marketing tools as a youth is a big advantage that even I'm 40 years old, even I don't necessarily have my finger on the pulse of that. I don't necessarily know the best way to take advantage of that. And if you're coming up now, you're under 30, you definitely know a lot more about that than I do.
Asa, is there a topic or a question that I haven't asked you that you're passionate about?
I think that, my big question today is, how do I, where is the vision of where I'm going? Do I want to run 2 properties and become an old man doing that, right? Which there's some advantages there, right? The advantage is, eventually you can have a really good lifestyle. You have less stress. You just dial things in, and I can go rock climbing more, which is what I love to do. I can spend more time with my new son and my family. Or do I want to, create a plan to grow and to, get more corporate, take bigger investment money and grow this into something more, that's just, working with a private equity firm and losing some of the soul of the business? Or can I do that in a way that doesn't lose the soul of the business? And I think that those are the kind of questions that I'm asking myself now is, where do I want this business to be in 10 years and 20 years? And if I sell the business, if I'm not part of it, what am I going to do with myself? Do I have a plan for that? I think that a lot of people who start a business, their sole focus is, I'm going to start this business, I'm going to sell it, and I'm going to make money, and then I'm going to do something else with my life. For me, I haven't gotten that far. For me, all that I can see in the future is continuing to run this business with this brand. Because
and you seem to be enjoying it every day, right? Like the way you talk about it, the way you sort of describe it, you seem to love it.
I absolutely love hospitality. I love the brand that we've created. I love our staff members and our team. I don't love some of the handcuffs that it puts on me. I think that if I could keep all of those things I love about the business, but I could go rock climbing more and spend more time with my family, that would be the perfect lifestyle. And I do really want to grow, just being a human. You need growth, fun, and meaning, right? In your job. So, you need growth. Humans need to grow, right? And so in your business or in your job, you need growth, because if you're stagnant, and you're not growing, then you're kind of dying in a way. Fun, there's definitely fun in this, and meaning, for me, I think the big aspect of meaning of what I do is providing easier access to the outdoors for our customers and our guests. That's a mission of mine. It's been a mission for years, for over a decade. I just know how much the outdoors and adventure has done for me. and I want to give that to our guests. So I think those three elements are all there, and the growth one is the big question mark of what does growth look like in an ideal world? And I haven't answered that yet, but that's a big thing that I'm working on now, is talking to as many people as I can, and figuring out, is that organic growth? We're just continuing to move forward, and it's slow, but we control it all. And in 10 years, maybe we have another property or two. Or is it taking investment, or is it a partnership with somebody else who's in a similar place where we don't have to have an investor that is just focused on money, but we have a bigger team and we have more resources and we can rely on each other and our learnings over the last 10 years. What does that look like? And hopefully I'll have an answer for you next time we talk. But I'm in that process today of figuring out what does that look like. And honestly, like I was saying before, I think this is the type of question that does need, it needs time, because you need to make sure you make the right decision. If I took investment money today and it was the wrong investor or the wrong decisions, that could totally be a regret that I never lived down. And so it needs to be the right situation. I need to make the right decision with how to grow.
Well, I look forward to speaking to you in due course as you make progress on this decision, because it's an important one. I want to wrap up with the final question, and I can guess the answer, but I'll leave it for myself. What's your favorite travel destination in the world?
Oh, I love that question. I
expect that there's at least one mountain involved.
Yeah. I've got to say, there's so many. I spent over a year of my life in Brazil, and so I probably got to go with Brazil. Brazil has a combination of, in my opinion, the most amazing culture. The people are the warmest that I've seen in the world, really. Although there's so many warm cultures out there, but just the music and the people and the food, and the beaches. But then it's such a huge country. There's so many places to explore there. And it's so wild and so diverse in with their people, their culture, and also the environment, right? You have, the Amazon, you've got, Rio. The fact that you can do a 10-pitch rock climb in Rio de Janeiro in the middle of the city, top out, get a beer, and take the cable car down is, where else in the world can you do that? It's unbelievable. So I would have to say Brazil. And if you haven't been to Brazil, it is a wild country, but it is so worth it and so rewarding and beautiful, that I haven't been there in a long time, and I really miss it down there.
Well, let's make a point to have a beer on the top of that mountain in Rio. Asa, thank you so much for coming on the program, sharing your insights, your thoughts, your experiences. Really love having you here.
Well, thank you. And I look forward to doing this again. And thanks again.
Thank you for listening to The Turndown. Don't forget to subscribe and tune in next week as we discover new exciting guests.